Right now on the Daily Debrief, new documents shed light on the prosecution of actor Jussie Smollett, new charges against R&B singer R. Kelly, and
it says, in March of 2018, my mother was raped.
A request from an accuser's daughter in the case of an NFL player facing rape charges. Also,
he would, quote, send them to the other side, no pain or suffering.
Was this man legally insane when he killed his 5 kids? Plus,
nobody has said to you that they were murdered in that house.
The prosecution appears to pivot from its original theory in the case of the murder of all 4 members of a California family. The Daily Debrief recaps the day in court. It's Friday, May 30th. Welcome to the Debrief, everybody. We will be joined in just a moment by our panel from across the country. 2 big legal developments out of Chicago, one involving R&B singer R. Kelly, the other involving actor Jussie Smollett. Chicago police have released documents which show Smollett discussed buying cocaine, ecstasy, and marijuana from the 2 brothers he later is said to have asked to attack him so that he could claim to be the victim of a hate crime. Text messages suggest Smollett used PayPal and Venmo to pay for the drugs and masked the transactions as legitimate expenses for personal training. Smollett said to one of the brothers, "Might need your help on the low. You around to meet up and talk face to face?" That is what police say started the plan to stage a fake hate crime attack. And right after that discussion, Smollett paid the brothers $3,500 for a so-called nutrition and workout program. A grand jury indicted Smollett on 16 charges, but prosecutors, of course, dropped all of them. Chicago police are releasing these and other documents related to the case after journalists requested access to them. And now to the case against R&B singer R. Kelly, whom prosecutors have moved against a second time with a series of new sexual misconduct charges. Kelly has already faced a judge on 10 charges. Now he faces 11 new counts. The accusations involve conduct said to have happened between early May 2009 and late January 2010, with an alleged victim known only as JP in court records. Accuser Geronda Pace admitted on Facebook that the charges do involve her, back when she was in her mid-teens. A grand jury is accusing Kelly of 4 counts of aggravated criminal sexual assault, 3 counts of criminal sexual assault, and 5 counts of aggravated criminal sexual abuse. All of the charges involve the use of force or the threat of force during alleged sex acts. Prosecutors filed the charges under a law which extends the state's statute of limitations because the conduct occurred before the alleged victim turned 18. R. Kelly's attorney compared the new charges to the old charges, saying, "These are the same conduct, just charged differently. Same alleged victim, same time frame, same facts. We expect the same results." The latter statement, a likely reference to previous defense claims that the accusations are false. To our panel now on the Debrief, Judge Birmingham is with us from Texas, along with others across the country. Judge, the judge in the Smollett case here refused to seal the records and gave journalists access to certainly what the police wanted made public. We know about that spat. Smollett, though, did not want these things released. So what do you think? Good call, bad call here in light of the prosecutor's decision to drop the charges?
Well, I am a firm believer in transparency in our government, and I really do think that the only exception is going to be if it's going to hinder an ongoing investigation or some other similar type exception. Obviously, if there's no case, there's no ongoing investigation, and I believe the public has a right to know things like that.
I agree. And look, a lot of open record statutes specifically say if a prosecutor doesn't move forward, the files become open. So Attorney Tara Walsh also with us. R. Kelly's attorneys are downplaying this new round of charges. We heard that quote. Should we believe them or should we believe the accuser?
Well, I think it's too early to say at this stage in the proceeding. I suppose that we'll see once the case moves forward through the criminal justice process.
And Attorney Gabriel Sepulveda Sanchez is with us as well here. So Gabriel, your thoughts on the R. Kelly matter. We've got new accusations. The defense saying they're basically the same as the previous ones. Just more for him to face in court. It's stacking up.
Yeah, it's somewhat similar to the Kellen Winslow case. You're having different victims showing up now. There was that whole documentary going on about the bunch of victims he's allegedly abused, and it's the same thing. It's not a good look. You're going to really have to, when you do jury selection on this trial, if there is a trial, you're going to have to really find jurors that are going to not be prejudiced about the prior situations he's been in. Really kind of find jurors that are don't know him. It's hard to say. I don't know what the evidence is yet, but it's definitely not looking good. Got different people coming up saying the same thing about what he's been accused of before. So it's not a good look.
Exactly. If you're R. Kelly, you're getting more and more nervous, more and more indictments coming out. We'll be back to all three of you on the panel in just a moment. To California now, where a surprise witness is likely to cause serious regrets for the prosecution. This is the trial of Kellen Winslow II, who played 10 seasons with the Cleveland Browns and other teams. Winslow faces 12 counts, some in multiples, and almost all are sex crimes. His 5 accusers range in age from 17 to 77. Here's the issue. The daughter of accuser number 1 said she wanted to testify after watching her own mother's credibility being questioned in television coverage. The prosecution asked permission to put that daughter on the stand and did. You probably remember that. Immediately thereafter, though, the defense caught the daughter going on TV and trying to raise money online, and that is a problem.
There's a reference to a GoFundMe website or place, I don't know what you call it.
Right, and you showed us all a picture of that. She's trying to raise $50,000 for her mom's mental health or something like that, correct?
Right, and just imagine that. Looks like she just took it down. I was looking at it while we were in trial, at least I had it up when I was in trial, and she had indicated that the fund was set up to fund her mother's, she had a history of mental health, and that she wanted to get some resources to have continuing mental health for her and then her relocation.
It sounds like it goes to bias, interests, or other motives she may have had while she's been up here on the stand. If right after her testimony she starts a fundraising effort to raise money for her mom.
So I would agree in terms of maybe the pecuniary interest and whether or not she's out soliciting funds at this point in time, and it would go to her own credibility as to whether or not she has any knowledge of any mental health history or mental illness that Mr. Carlos is referencing. I think that is entirely irrelevant to the jury's determination and assessment of the credibility of Jane Doe number 1.
Back during the original testimony, the daughter tried to back up the mother's account of being raped allegedly by Kellen Winslow II.
She asked me about STD testing, and I let her know that Planned Parenthood, you could do it for free and it's confidential.
Ms. Foster, when you were having that conversation with her on March 18th, did you see any items of clothing in your mother's bedroom?
On top of the pile of the laundry basket, there was a pair of white pants. They were stained with blood.
Did you see where there was blood on the pants?
It was in the crotch area.
Did you ask your mother about that?
I did, but the way I phrased it was, "Oh, you ruined your pants." And what she replied was, "Yeah, I'm on the rag." She had asked me to look up the phone number for the Encinitas Sheriff's Department.
Did you do that for her?
Yes, I did.
Did you ask her why she needed you to look up the phone number for the Encinitas Sheriff's Department?
Yes, at this point I was a little concerned because of the STD testing mentioned a few days before. So I asked her if everything was okay, and she said, "Yes, I was attacked, but I'm going to file a police report."
And now to testimony from accuser number 5. She described 2 incidents with the defendant. The first occurred near some exercise equipment in a gymnasium. The second happened in a jacuzzi.
How close was he to you?
About this close.
Indicating about 18 inches.
I could do anything. I guess when you're so afraid, you just kind of frozen.
Could you see what he was doing?
I could not see, but I can think what he was doing. He was masturbating.
Objection. It's non-responsive and speculative.
It is not, Your Honor. She's describing.
No, I won't entertain speaking objections. The answer will stand as to her perception. You can inquire on cross. The answer will stand. Go ahead.
Thank you, Your Honor. Why was it that you believed he was masturbating next to you?
The movement of his hand, he was just doing the kind of when you masturbating do. With his right hand, he touched my left arm.
Was that before, during, or after he had been doing the motion that you described as masturbating?
That was after.
Could you see his penis when he grabbed your arm?
No, you could not see nothing in that kind of water.
On cross-examination, the defense suggested doe number 5 was paranoid about Winslow because she had seen his legal troubles on television. The defense also forced a bit of a retreat on what happened in that hot tub.
Did you tell him that that's the same man from the TV?
No, I did not. I hope I knew he was the man from the TV. If I knew he was from the TV, that I saw him,
Okay.
I could have just called the police myself. I didn't have to go to the manager. I had to call the police right that moment.
Right.
If I knew he was the same guy,
So
I didn't know.
You tell your husband that this guy did some strange things to you, right?
Yes.
Right? And he said, okay, you know, you guys talked about it, and then nothing happened for another 2 weeks.
He kept insisting to me that I should report it to the manager.
Yesterday you described, you know, his hand movement. You remember that?
Right?
Okay. You said that the way you described it is his hand was below the water, and then you moved your shoulder, your right shoulder, up and down. Remember that?
Right.
Okay. But you couldn't see underneath the water.
No.
You didn't know what he was doing with his hand.
No.
You didn't know whether he was rubbing a leg or anything like that. You don't know because you couldn't see.
Yes.
Okay, the panel joins me again tonight here on the Debrief. Gabriel Sepulveda Sanchez, the judge there seemed inclined to allow the defense to call that daughter back to the stand to take digs at her credibility because of that GoFundMe, but they don't want to bring up knowledge of the mother's mental health status. At least the prosecution doesn't, and the judge seemed inclined not to allow that. Do you think that's fair?
Yeah, I mean, I think, first of all, everyone's doing it. I don't think it's that big of a deal. Everyone's got the GoFundMe page now. I don't think based on what I saw, I didn't think there was any intent to capitalize on the, on the situation of her mom's trial. You would really have to show that she's biased in some way and that she set up this page and she's not a credible witness. So I think they're going to ask her questions about what was her intent on doing this GoFundMe page. And I mean, everyone has those nowadays. I don't think it's going to be a big deal at all. I'm not really too concerned about that.
Well, look, I mean, she was chomping at the bit here, Judge Birmingham, to be a witness. Like, oh, wait, I saw this on TV. I've got something relevant to add. I want to go on the witness stand. Let me. And then she does it. And then she goes on TV and then pushes this fundraising thing. And she's trying to raise $50,000. I mean, certainly, I think you would agree that the judge should at least probe into this a little bit. And that's what's going to happen outside the presence of the jury on Monday.
Yeah, exposing a witness's bias is one of the cornerstones of any cross-examination, and certainly another one is rebutting anything that they have said during their own testimony before. Remember, she said, the reason why I wanted to come testify is because my mother's credibility was being attacked. Well, now she's trying to make money off of this thing, and so I think that you're going to hear that as a good reason why this should be brought out in front of the jurors to rebut her testimony and expose a bias that she might have had.
Yeah, I mean, certainly the discussion about the credibility, the fundraiser, and maybe not the mental health thing. Tara Walsh, really quickly, your take on the cross of doe number 5.
You know, I've said this before. I think the defense attorney did an excellent job in offering an alternative narrative as to what happened in that jacuzzi. They offered a very reasonable explanation for his behavior in the jacuzzi. He was there relaxing. He moved closer to her because there also happened to be a jet closer to the witness. He had said something like, that feels good. Also would have been a reasonable statement if you're leaning back against a jet. So I think they did a very good job with that. And it's certainly believable that that could happen.
Good points, good points. We'll see you all again at the end of the broadcast. Still ahead tonight on the Debrief, we look ahead to the case of a murder-for-hire plot which took the life of a Texas dentist. One of the accused conspirators will stand trial next week. Plus, a fiery rebuttal in the death penalty case against a California man accused of murdering a father, a mother, and 2 children. That is after the break here on the Debrief. Now to the upcoming case of a woman accused of being involved in the murder-for-hire plot which took the life of a Dallas dentist. Rachel Stockman has this look ahead.
An ex-lover jealous enough to pay for a hitman? Prosecutors say Brenda Delgado plotted for months to kill her former boyfriend's new girlfriend. Kendra Hatcher, a prominent Dallas dentist, was found shot to death in a parking garage on September 2nd, 2015. Delgado allegedly promised to pay hitman Christopher Love money and drugs from a cartel to kill Hatcher. The getaway driver testified at the hitman's trial last October.
We started planning this murder. We would follow Miss Kendra. We would stake out her apartment.
Love was sentenced to death for his role in the killing, while the getaway driver agreed to a 35-year sentence to testify at both trials. But investigators say the real mastermind, Brenda Delgado, fled to Mexico. Months later, she was captured and extradited. In exchange, prosecutors agreed not to seek the death penalty. She faces life in prison if convicted for Hatcher's death. Watch Gavel to Gavel coverage on the Law&Crime network of this trial. I'm Rachel Stockman for Law&Crime.
A man accused of murdering his 5 kids is pressing an insanity defense in South Carolina. Timothy Jones Jr. could be executed if jurors find him guilty and then agree on a punishment. He admits disciplining one child to death and then strangling the 4 others. Jones then drove around with all 5 bodies in the back of his Cadillac SUV for more than a week. A parade of doctors continues taking the stand for the defense, arguing insanity.
It's my opinion that related to the death of Natan, that Mr. Jones did not recognize that the legal wrongfulness of what he was doing regarding Natan's behavior and his punishment of Natan. And regarding the deaths of the other 4 children, it's my opinion that he did not have the ability or capacity to distinguish moral right from moral wrong. He was able to distinguish legal right from legal wrong. He believed that they would be better off in heaven than to not have a parent, that he would be in prison, that their mother would not be there for them. And that's when he believed that he would, quote, send them to the other side, no pain or suffering then.
The defense in that case has rested, and we expect closing arguments next week. Now to California, where the state and the defense were fighting it out right until the end in the capital murder case against Charles Merritt. He's accused of killing business associate Joseph McStay and the entire McStay family in 2010. All 4 of the McStays were beaten with a hammer. Their bodies did not turn up until years after they disappeared. During closings, the defense accused the state of blurring the truth multiple times.
The DA in this case has hidden the truth from you. And they set out on a course to hide the truth from you. You heard from Brian LaRocque. He testified about PayPal records, and you also heard from a representative from PayPal, Sarah Kane. Not Joseph's PayPal records, although you heard about those too. I'm talking about Dan Kavanaugh's PayPal records. Do you realize, ladies and gentlemen, that the prosecution never even requested those PayPal records? Do you realize that law enforcement, Sergeant Smith sitting here and his team, never even requested his PayPal records? So they didn't know that Dan Kavanaugh had diverted payments from the production business online to his own account. They had no idea because they never requested it. Even more shocking, they never requested Dan Kavanaugh's bank records. Dan Kavanaugh, on February 10th, either the day after or the day of, he makes the call for a welfare check on his friend, Joseph McStay. He's dipping into his PayPal account and stealing Joseph's money. Did Mr. Kavanaugh think that he wasn't coming back? I mean, Mr. Kavanaugh had to have known when he was dipping into that account and swiping $13,000 right off the bat that there's going to be a problem when Joseph gets back. Unless you know he's not coming back.
The prosecution seems to have done some serious backtracking, though, on its theory of the case. The first issue here involves where the McStays are thought to have been killed. The second issue involves the day the bodies may have been buried.
One thing I think that defense counsel and I and the prosecution team are both in agreement on is that something happened in that house. Our versions of what happened in that house are very different. They want to say that we have said they were murdered in that house. Nobody has said to you that they were murdered in that house. Nobody from the prosecution team has stood up here and said to you, all 4 of those people were murdered in that house. The defendant got control of that family and got them out of that house. They're saying the people's theory is that the bodies were buried on February 6th. Nobody has ever said that to you. Nobody has ever sat here and told you the bodies were buried on February 6th. What we said is that the defendant's phone pinged off of a tower next to the graves on February 6th. Why would he go up there on February 6th? Well, if he buried them before and we have these heavy rains, maybe he needed to go check and make sure that they were still buried.
Okay, let's bring the panel back in for this one. Attorney Tara Walsh, what do you think here? Is the state really changing horses right at the end of the battle here? I mean, oh, we've got blood in the house, we've got towels missing, we think the defendant was around there in his truck, but oh, wait a minute, we're not saying they were killed in the house now.
You know, it certainly seems a bit inconsistent. You know, the advantage, obviously, that the state has in a criminal trial is that they're closing last. So any inconsistencies that are painted by the defense, they would certainly have an opportunity to try to tie up those loose ends, or if something has come up in which they need to explain, to try to best do that in their closing. And it certainly seems that that's what she's attempting to do.
Gabriel Sepulveda Sanchez here. Here's my thing. Unknown DNA in the graves. Multiple unknown DNA profiles on the items used to bind the bodies.
Yeah, I mean, that's something they need to look into. I mean, the defense is going to jump on that. There's unknown DNA. It could have been someone else other than Merritt. So, but I also agree. I don't think when you're doing a trial, you should stick with this is your theme. This is your story. Stick with that. Whenever an attorney, DA or whatever it is, defense attorney, changes their theme or story, that doesn't look good in front of a jury.
Bad news, exactly. Judge Birmingham, I wish we could chat about this one too, but we're out of time. I want to thank the panel tonight and thank those of you watching along with us. We'll be back here on Monday. Depending on testimony in the Winslow case, it might be 3, it might be 5. See you next week, everybody.